Another day, another reason the Rwanda scheme isn't going to work. Now, at least this one is rooted in practical chronology, really. The Home Office say, look, sorry, mate, by the time you actually get round to being in a position to get these planes off, to get the scheme rolling, it's just going to be too late, because the election will probably be, I guess, you know, September, October, November, autumn sometime. They're saying at the Home Office that there literally is not time to get the first plane off the ground. So another reason it ain't going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, the Home Office has said that the first flights will take off in around anywhere between, 6 to 9 weeks' time. But for the Rwanda plan to actually work, you do need to deport a critical mass of people, because then it makes it economically irrational to come to the UK. The problem is the Rwandan government has said publicly that it wants a bedding-in phase, so they're only going to accept, a small number of people. So there's obviously a big question there long-term. Can the Rwandan government absorb all of these people? And of course, as you pointed out, Kevin, we're coming to the end of the political cycle. And the Labour Party, lo and behold, have said that they will scrap the Rwanda plan, regardless of whether it has a deterrent effect or not.
What did you make of that? I mean, it's depressing for those of us who would like to see at least a reduction of the number of migrants trying to get across the channel. Incredibly, I learned yesterday that the number of foreign illegal migrants trying to cross the channel over the last week was 876. So while we're in our ivory towers debating whether or not the scheme can get going, the invasion of the migrants continues apace at a really alarming rate at the moment, just as we suspected when the weather got nice.
Yeah, I mean, we're only halfway through the month, and yet, 2,000 people have crossed already. And that's already higher than the number who crossed last year for the whole of May. So, we're following the trajectory of, 2022, which was a record-breaking year of around, 45,000 illegal crossers. So as, the weather conditions improve, we're going to see more and more people crossing the English Channel up until late September.
What's your personal feeling as an expert in the field, Mike? Will we ever get any proper migrants to Rwanda? I say that advisedly because, of course, a couple of weeks ago, we did get a migrant to Rwanda, but we paid him 3,000 quid and we're going to give him a load of money to get by for the next year or so, pay his living expenses for a year. And I think he wasn't from very far away from Rwanda. So effectively, we paid for his flight home and gave him a load of money and promised to pay for his upkeep for the next year or so. So not exactly a triumph to get him there. So will we ever get any proper migrants to Rwanda?
I think it's more than possible. I think the really important question is, can you get large numbers at scale and speed to Rwanda? Can the deterrence effect actually take place? But there are lots of problems here. First of all, the Home Office has actually lost contact with most of the illegals earmarked for deportation. I think they're only in contact with around sort of 38%. The other problem, of course, are the legal challenges, the potential legal challenges. Those could be appeals from individual migrants. We have Clause 4 of the Safety of Rwanda Act, which allows them to do so. And there may be challenges taken to the higher courts as well. So there are lots of known unknowns there.
Yes, indeed. And what about that? I mean, because they're now talking in terms of, because at one point it was like, Rwanda will only take 200 migrants, at which point we all went, hang on, well, what is this all about anyway? But now the government is talking about 6,000. I'm not sure where Kigali stands on that, but they've lost half of them. I mean, sort of dysfunctionality incarnate, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, you don't have enough space in detention centres. And if you don't have enough space in detention centres, then people have to live amongst the general population. And when that happens, it's very easy to abscond. If you're earmarked for deportation or you suspect you're being earmarked, then you simply change address and, change your phone number or whatever. And, the Home Office can't do anything about it. You've got to realise these people don't have documents. They don't have, bank accounts or national insurance numbers. they're just impossible to track down. And that's going to be a huge stumbling block to making Rwanda work.
Indeed. And what about legal migration? I mean, I heard James Cleverly, the Home Secretary, the other day saying something like he was going to sort of cut down or block students' dependents' visas or something, which sounded to me like a sort of drop in the ocean. And gross migration last year, I think, was about 1.1 million. Net migration, 500, 600,000. So this importation of mostly low-level employee migrants, they're mostly coming to do low-grade jobs, manual jobs, fruit picking, whatever. That continues apace at a massive rate that doesn't get enough attention, really. That is probably, well, almost certainly a bigger problem than illegal migration.
Sure. I mean, I think illegal migration is an enormously huge problem. But in terms of sheer volume and sheer numbers, it's the points-based system that's, triggering the large demographic changes that we're seeing. And, James Cleverly has been given a bit of a boost. The Migration Advisory Committee have said that the government is, on target to getting net migration down to around 200,000. I hope that's correct, but I'm not as bullish on that. We don't have a cap on immigration visas. We don't have a cap on family visas. We don't have a cap on humanitarian visas. We have no cap on students. We have no cap on skilled worker visas. And many of those people, apart from social care workers, can bring dependents with them. So yes, I think the ban on postgraduate student dependents is a good thing. Will have an impact on numbers. But at the end of the day, if you don't have a cap on immigration, you don't have any control.
And isn't the reason for our soaring legal immigration, that many in our body politic believe that the more people you bring in, the more money they have to spend, that promotes a boosting of the economy. I believe that is true, but the boost is infinitesimal. It's very small. It stands to reason. You keep bringing people in, they're going to have more money to spend, no matter if they haven't got very high-paid jobs, they still will spend stuff. So you will make the economy grow ever so slightly, but it's a fool's mission, isn't it, to say this is good for the economy of the country, this is good for the country?
Yeah, well, that claim is completely false. I mean, of course, if you increase immigration, you increase your population. And yes, GDP goes up, the quantity of goods and services, but that's not real wealth. Real wealth is measured by GDP per capita, per person. So, Singapore has a much smaller population than India, but, Singapore is a much richer country. You could compare Luxembourg to, say, Nigeria. Luxembourg is a much, much richer country. Simply increasing the size of your population to boost growth is a complete economic fallacy. It's ultimately about productivity. It's about investments in technology. It's about making people more efficient at what they do. And obviously, it's about investments in hard infrastructure. The government hasn't really done any of these things at all. Simply keeping the pedal to the metal on mass immigration is not going to solve this.
And we were talking earlier, do you think, we're talking about reducing the number of people coming here, legally that is, do you think that the government could be on target to get net migration to below 200,000? That is a big reduction. Could they do this?
Well, the Migration Advisory Committee seems to think so, and I hope they're right. But I'm not as bullish on this, simply because we don't have a cap on visas. And yeah, the ban or the partial ban on student dependents, the ban on social care worker dependents, will obviously make a huge difference to the numbers. But you've got to realise we still have a shortage occupation list with lots of low-skilled and semi-skilled jobs. And the UK is still a very attractive destination for foreign students, especially from developing countries, and particularly for those younger people without dependents. So I'm perhaps more bearish on the idea they're going to get net migration down to 200,000 by the next election. But as I say, I hope I'm wrong. I hope I have to eat crow and humble pie and all the rest of it.
Yeah, I hope you're wrong as well, but I don't think you will be. What would be your estimation? The way we're going now, Mike, we always knew we're veering back now to illegal migration, the cross-channel problem. We always knew come the summer, that's when they all start coming across, which is why some people suggested that Rishi Sunak might go for a May election so he wouldn't have to endure the optical horror of this armada coming over day in, day out. But he's obviously decided to suffer that indignation. But the way we're going, with a clement summer ahead, calm seas, what would you estimate? What's it looking like that our number of illegal migrants coming across the Channel will be by the end of the year?
Oh, I think it could almost certainly be a record-breaking year. Anywhere between 40 to 50,000. I mean, it could even be higher than 50,000. But we're definitely on course for a record-breaking year. I mean, events may disrupt that. If the Rwanda plan does get off the ground, if Kigali does accept a critical mass of people, you may have some would-be illegal migrants keeping their powder dry, staying in France, waiting until the end of the election. But again, that may not happen.
And of course, we gave France £500 million to, that was the latest of our many donations to the French purse. I think we were going hundreds of thousands before that, but we gave them £500 million. I think it was like last March or something like that, for them to patrol their beaches properly. They're clearly not doing that. Labour still trotting out that tired old argument, we've got to get round the table with France and we've got to work this out. When are they going to realise that France doesn't want to stop the migrants leaving France? It wants them to come across the Channel to Britain so they can be shod of them. When are our politicians going to realise that sitting round the table with France is a good way of setting fire to £500 million?
To be fair to the French, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but they have actually upped their game recently, and they are stopping more people from making the journey across the Channel. However, the problem with this is that the French don't want a returns agreement with us, which would very easily solve the problem. You have joint boat patrols, joint operations, and the returns policy. And I think long term that would actually benefit the French, because you'd have fewer illegals actually making the journey into France itself. But, France is a very nationalistic country, and it would be politically toxic for the government there to cut any sort of deal with the UK. So I think the Labour Party are being very optimistic about, thrashing out some sort of deal here.
I've never quite... So what were you saying, Mike? Carry on.
And of course, any deal would have to go through the European Commission.
Of course, it's not a deal with France, is it? It's a deal with the EU. And I've never quite worked out why, when they get here, we give them hotels, free food, 45 quid a week, all that sort of stuff. Treat them pretty well. In France, they're lucky if they get a tent. They get nothing, and they don't get slammed. We're the ones who get slammed for the terrible way we treat the migrants. What about the French? The French make them sort of live rough. But anyway, there we are. Mike, great to talk to you as always.